Hey, good afternoon, everybody. John here at Epic Maker Studio, and we're going to take a look at, mind you, this is last year's information. I don't know why I didn't cover this way back in March, but it does have some relevance right now, so I'd like to go ahead and cover it. So last year we got our top 5 non-collectible miniature lines. We've used this before from ICV2 in the previous year, just kind of keeping track of the top miniature games and lines out there. Now, this top 5 list right now is showing, and we're going to go through this and why this is all relative right now. Sitting at number 5 is Star Wars Legion from Atomic Mass Games, followed by number 4, Marvel Crisis Protocol at Atomic Mass Games. Age of Sigmar for Games Workshop is number 3. Noel Zur's Marvelous Miniatures, our Whiz Kids, that's the publisher for that, at number 2. And then Warhammer 40,000, of course, from Games Workshop. Now, these are the top 5 sellers for non-collectible miniature lines. Not necessarily the games, but the miniatures. Because remember, Games Workshop is a model company, not a game company. There is a difference. They make the games so you have something to do with your models. I know people don't like to believe that, but trust me, that is literally what they tell their employees. So, that being said, we're starting to see some chinks in Games Workshop's armor being the top brand, being the top dog. There other companies now are, and I'm not really counting Noel Zur's Marvelous Miniatures. That is just a strictly a miniature line for RPGs. It is I'm surprised it's not number 1 because they're inexpensive, relatively decent models, and they sell in droves for anybody playing RPGs, especially Pathfinder and Dungeons and Dragons or any sort of fantasy related material. There are even people buying up those things for games, or miniature agnostic games like Frosthaven. Is it Frosthaven? Frostgrave, sorry, Frostgrave, and a few other games from like Osprey Press and such that use miniature, that they have miniature agnostic, meaning they don't have their own miniature line. They say just bring in any relative or any model that's relative to what you're using. So those are starting to become more popular now. Something else, the reason why we're seeing Atomic Mass Games push up is because Atomic Mass Games has better quality models, finally, from Games Workshop, a much smaller line. They don't have the bloated line that Games Workshop has, but they have a better quality miniatures, a better price point. They have better rules, and those rules are free, and a better well-written rules, and they have better customer service than Games Workshop. Games Workshop's customer service right now is really atrocious, and even the way that they treat their employees. We might do a video on some of the issues that internal politics, or not internal politics, but internal issues with employees, not just at the Warhammer and Games Workshop stores, but at the home office in Nottingham, the problems that they are facing. But we're going to consider that once we have a little bit more legitimate information over a lot of speculatory stuff. At any rate, we're starting to see companies like Atomic Mass Games that are taking care of customers better and making it easier and cheaper to get into than, say, anything Games Workshop is putting out. And they're starting to move up in those ranks. And then, of course, we look at other, what we don't see here is I'm going to call it the Patreon publisher. These are the 3D sculptors out there, like, say, Turn-Based Miniatures, C27 Minis in Terrain, Trident Studios, Firefly, Nuclear Firefly, and Gamic. There's a lot out there that are producing, I'm going to just say, at least in the case for Games Workshop, off-brand, and all the other versions of the game, just basically off-brand, well made sculpts of models that can be used in those games. And the cost to either purchase them from, say, Etsy, or to get the STLs yourself and print them off is trumping what people like Games Workshop are using, especially when Games Workshop is charging $50 and it would be $50 US for a 10-man box of Primera Space Marines in the UK. But here in the US, it's either, I know it was 60, I think it's $65 now. There's a $15 markup for no particular reason whatsoever, but whatever. We've talked about that before. But we can turn around and use use maybe a dollar or two of resin and print off a squad of 10 Marines. And yes, you do have to do some cleanup, but what's a couple of dollars and waiting for 9 hours for you to print off 10 Intercessor Space Marines? That's nothing, especially when it's like top-notch qualities. Now, I'm not telling you guys to go out there and pirate that stuff. There are plenty of groups out there that are doing their own miniature lines that do resemble Space Marines that you can obviously use, or Imperial Guard, Necrons, and whatnot. You just got to find them. Usually you can find them on Etsy or Patreon, that sort of thing. You can just Google it and you'll be fine. Now, for those of you that are like, well, I can't use those at a Games Workshop event. Well, how often do you guys go to an official Games Workshop event? Let me ask you that. Think about that. When's the last time, or how often do you go to a Games Workshop store or a Warhammer store and play in one of their events? Yeah, I hear that quiet. Okay, now that aside, we're not seeing those Patreon publishers as a broad general term. We're not seeing them on this list, but they are definitely a contender on there. I would definitely say that they're in that top 10. And combining that with all these better quality, smaller level skirmish games that are either miniature agnostic or have their own miniature lines that are affordable, and either games with free rules or inexpensive rule books that are quality rules over Games Workshop's bad rules. And they're deliberately bad rules. We've covered that before. Games Workshop is starting to get toppled. It's not going to be anytime soon, so I'm not saying that Games Workshop is going to cave. They're going to go the way of Privateer Press, who was a potential rival for Games Workshop. But Privateer Press, the owners, creators of War Machine and Hordes, had a lot of internal issues, and it just caved in, and they ruined their own business. Now, so they're out. Now, none of these other companies like Atomic Mass Games, I mean, it could be a decade before Atomic Mass Games could rival Games Workshop. But it's not that they're trying to compete against Games Workshop. They've found their own niche, and this is the point. They have found their own niche. These smaller game companies have found that niche that is satisfying the tabletop miniature gaming needs of us, the consumers, and making a better quality games where we're not wasting 3 hours, or like Horse Heresy now is starting to look like the new version of Horse Heresy is looking to be about 3.5 hours, if not longer, per game. Where people are now be able to play some tabletop miniature games and get them done in an hour, hour and a half. When you're cutting around 50% or even 60% of your time from the gameplay, it is very rewarding, and it gives you a lot more time to do other things. And there's a smaller group of competitors, and it's a lot more fierce because you're dealing with basically, I would say, the same level of competitiveness that you're getting from those of you that like playing the competitive nature of, say, Games Workshop's Warhammer 4000 or Age of Sigmar at big tournaments. You are still finding that, but you're finding a much smaller, more precise, more fierce competitors with these smaller games than you are with the bigger games. So that right there is just a little tidbit that I threw in. Now, the most important thing I want to focus on is where we are financially right now with Games Workshop. And this is, some people will say, well, John, this is because of the pandemic. It's because of global shipping issues. They're going to blame it on the Russian-Ukraine war. They're going to blame it on the U.S.'s recession. Well, guys, remember, this is not a U.S.-based company. I think they only do like 34% of sales. Maybe it might have been 24% of sales here in North America. Don't quote me on that. It's been such a long time since I remember their numbers. Anyways, right now, as of yesterday, Games Workshop sitting at 73 per share. That is low, guys. That is low, especially considering this is a month? Nope, a couple months after. Yeah, actually, a couple months. Jeez, what was that? March 7th, I believe, was when we saw the price increases. So they did have some spikes, but everything has just continued to drop off. And just so we can kind of highlight, see this Mount Everest of dips and dives or rises here. Games Workshop did really well during the pandemic, and kudos to them for knocking it out of the park when it was so hard. So many people, so many businesses suffered. Games Workshop flourished during the pandemic and with the global shipping issues. But we haven't seen this dip in since roughly about the beginning of sometime around the beginning of the issues that everybody was having when everything was on lockdown. Now we're past all that, and Games Workshop is continuing to take a dive financially. So what does this mean? Does this mean Games Workshop is going to go away? Once again, no. Games Workshop's not going to go away. They're still predicted to have an continued growth over the next three, I think it was next three, could be five, but I'm pretty sure it was next 3 years, averaging around 10% growth every year in revenue. They do have a number of issues that are kind of hindering them, like I have high levels of non-cash earnings and like an unstable dividend track record, but their overall health is still good, even with these big dips and dives. But when they continue to put out really bad customer service, apps and games that are just not selling well, I mean, these numbers right now should be looking really, really good. I think this week we might see a bounce back. Some people are like, well, this doesn't include Horus Heresy. Guys, any money that was spent on the Horus Heresy by stores and people were mainly last week. So yes, some of you might be waiting. Oh, we're going to buy our stuff. So those numbers will shoot back up. They could, but you got to keep in mind that last week, actually, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, the orders had to start being made for the Horus Heresy. I believe it was a 2 week window at the local store level versus last week when everything went on pre-order last Saturday. So last Saturday, that's when we saw, what was that, the 11th? So there, right here is when we were selling, or not selling, yeah. So it would have been the 10th. So this right here was the peak, and then it's just dropped off. So Horus Heresy has already been purchased by the stores. It's already on its way. Some stores already have it. They just haven't given it away yet. They're going to probably do some midnight stuff. So those of you thinking that the Horus Heresy is going to revitalize them back up to those numbers of in the hundreds, 170s, bring it back down to reality, guys. Now, like I said, don't panic. Games Workshop is not going away. They're not dead in the water. They're still top dog, and they probably will be this year and for the next few years. Now, what does this all have to do with anything? It's nothing. I'm just giving you guys some updated news on the financial health of Games Workshop and where it's sitting pretty much in the marketplace. I think that there is going to be some turbulent times for Games Workshop in the very near future. I think we'll see how things turn around. Hopefully next year. Well, we're already in next year for them because this is the start of their fiscal year. We'll find out in November, actually probably January of next year, once we see what the second half of the financials are. So right now, this last fiscal year was not good for Games Workshop. It has going to be dismal. Now they're going to put a positive spin on it. And of course, that doesn't mean stop playing anything from Games Workshop. I want you guys to understand that even though I'm reporting bad news on Games Workshop, if it is your favorite game, then you keep playing it. If your favorite edition is 5th edition, or you love playing Rogue Trader, or 3rd edition, 7th edition, 8th, I don't know why 7th edition, but 8th edition, or you're a big fan of 9th edition, you want to keep going, then you stick with it. You enjoy your game all day long. Nobody should be able to take that away from you. And if they're telling you to stop playing, they're wrong, right? This is your hobby. It brings you joy. Stick with it. I am giving you other alternatives that you might find financially and find some new joy in some other games that will not be so detrimental to your pocketbook, that will free up more of your time, and you might have more fun in a community that isn't. I can't say that the Games Workshop community is toxic, but I would say largely they are not. But that smaller group seems to be getting bigger. I could be wrong. That's a perception, not a fact. I don't have the facts to back that up. But the perception is that it's getting bigger, and there's a lot more burnout from Warhammer 40,000 and Age of Sigmar. So take that into consideration. Maybe get ahead of the curve and go ahead and jump over to other game systems. Anyways, let me know what you guys think of this video, especially my interpretations of numbers. I mean, I'm not a math whiz or financial wizard here or with a business degree, but I do understand the value of numbers, and I can take a look and see a drop of 101 to points or dollars, whatever, per share is that's a loss. That's a major loss, and that's not good for overall health. So you guys let me know. Maybe I'm misinterpreting these numbers, and this is actually a good thing that they've dipped down 100 points. I don't know. Anyway, you guys have yourself a wonderful day. Hopefully we'll be back later on with a reanalysis of Heimdall and Scourge. I've had time to read over the rules, and we're going to do another analysis of those two cards and where they are going to fit very well in the Asgard teams, or the Asgard team, and who they're going to work out better with, and some better uses, where last time our videos just kind of covered the character card and compared to my hilarious, if possibly hilarious, predictions that just went wrong. So look for that video a little later on today. You guys have yourself a wonderful, wonderful afternoon. I'll chat with you later. See ya.